of the YouTube component? Okay. Okay. All right, we're good.
We're good.
Are we on? Are we live? Okay, cool.
So we're going to call the January 23rd, 2023, the library here. 4:01 p.m. We are going to start with the land acknowledgements. The Altadena Library District acknowledges presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded land of the gathering meeting of the Altadena is located on the stolen homeland of Akamunga, Bay. The traditional territory of the gathering movement is referred to as Tongar, which includes the areas currently known as Los Angeles County, Riverside County, West San Bernardino County, parts of Orange counties, as well as the four southern Channel Islands. Entities such as the U.S. government and non-native settlers have subjected the gathering of Tonga people to historic and continuing injustices, genocide, forced displacement, cultural and linguistic. Altadena Library commits to learning, educating, and informing its staff and residents of present Altadena about the rich histories, vibrant communities, and culture of the gathering of people present and past through our collection development resources and program offerings. So we have feedback from the board on reordering and the closed session items. You need to vote on adoption of that, or
You can adopt the closed session agenda.
help on J1, my fellow board members here serving in the past. So I'd like to take a roll call vote on the adoption of the closed session agenda.
Oh, sorry, I'm so sorry. So I move that we adopt the closed session agenda.
Do I have any seconds? Second. Ready? And the second, I'll take the roll call. Aye.
Aye.
Do we have any public comment on this section? So with that said, we see everybody back here. Okay.
Can somebody let me know when closed session opens up?
Can you say that again, Paul?
Could you let me know when closed session ends and open session is going to begin so I can come back in?
Make sure somebody gets you a message and gives you a heads up for sure.
All right, somebody give me an email. That'd be great.
Thank you.
Okay.
on Rooney.
We have to wait till we start recording again.
We're still recording. We didn't
Okay.
stop, so we should be ready to go.
All right, everything's good. All right, I'm gonna call us back into the open session at 5:15 p.m. At this time, there's no reportable action from our closed session. And we won't call for tonight's meeting. Mr. Andrews, here. Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mr. Lynn, here. Obviously, James here as well. Is there anyone feel we need to reorder any of the agenda items? Okay. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda? Secondly. So, was roll call to approve the agenda. Trustee Andrews. Aye. Trustee Clark.
Hi.
Trustee Lynn. Trustee Wilkerson. And that's I vote for you as well. Adopted.
Do we have any public comment on non-agenda items?
No public comment.
Thank you. So moving on to the consent calendar. The minutes from the last meeting. Any discussion? Okay, motion to approve the minutes for this meeting.
I move we approve the minutes.
Seconded. Okay, thank you. So roll call, trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Clark,
Hi.
trustee Lynn,
Aye.
trustee Wilkerson,
Hi.
and that's an I vote for me as well. Thank you. We did not remove anything from the consent calendar. So then we have the department updates, special presentations. Do we have any comments before we do the redistricting presentation? Any comments on the department update reports? I'll just take liberty on one quick one. The history report specifically, I love the report on their holiday celebration and the diversity of that. I think it's, yeah, I mean, it's just, I keep being amazed by the work being done with the literacy center, and it keeps me motivated to drive the work that we're doing to build out this branch and the actual literacy center. And that's so, yeah, it's really exciting to see that. Others?
I'll just say very briefly, I was such enthusiastic uptake on the Fab Lab reopening. That's great, and it makes me really excited about it as we're kind of redesigning some of the spaces and maker space for the renovation of the main library. That we have an enthusiastic constituency of folks who take advantage of that. So that's good.
And I would just reflect on the diversity of events that are happening. It's
Yeah.
really, really exciting to see. Different types of events that are hosted in the library. It really goes toward, I think there's always been conversation about making it like a hub of the community, and from the type of events, like we are scoring on that in that way.
Sure.
I think at our last meeting, they had the reunite, it was very well attended. I love the library, so
Yeah.
it warms my heart, especially during the Christmas season. I couldn't participate as much, but there's always something to do.
Yeah, I'm, in agreement with all this. I'm just surprised at how many great programs we are providing all the time. It's really terrific to see. And true crime, it's always there every, I haven't indulged in that lately, but I'm thinking about doing that.
Great. All right, next on the agenda, we have the redistricting presentation.
So I will introduce to you all Kristen, part of the, I always get it wrong, National Demographics Corporation, who is going to give us a presentation on the redistricting process as 2019, and this is the first of 4 meetings that we are going to have on this process, and so I will turn it over to you, Kristen, to start it. It's exciting, it's happening.
Thank you so much, and trustees, thank you for having me here in your meeting this evening. My presentation is going to be an informative presentation, and of course, some of your board members have already seen this information, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. But we are able to hold a certain number of meetings and present certain information in a certain sequence. So a lot of that is in compliance with state law. So we'll go on, and I do have Adelina helping me here with the slide, so thank you. We can go to the next slide. There we go. Which is just a reminder of what the districting process is. It is a transition where we will roll out a new election system for the library district. Whereas in the past, each member of the Board of Trustees has been elected by all of the Altadena voters. And then when you transition to a by trustee area or by district elections, then it's only the voters within each district that elect one member or one trustee to the board. And the why we're doing it, and I will commend you, I mentioned this to Nikki, that you're doing this at the perfect time. You are doing it after all of the crazy 2020 census and redistricting happened. So this is a perfect moment to do it. And what you're avoiding is any future lawsuit. And we have seen special districts in the state of California receive letters for the California Voting Rights Act. So this is a very wise decision to make going forward. Okay, next slide. So just outline of the schedule, we are required to have 5 public hearings. We usually do those over the course of 4. We have those laid out here. We are legally prohibited from sharing any potential maps of the trustee areas until the 3rd meeting. So the second meeting will be also just informative, and then by the 3rd meeting we'll actually dig into proposed trustee areas and so we do have to follow both federal and state law. Of course, under federal law, the main driver that we are looking at is the equal population rule. So each trustee area will have more or less the same number of residents. And that number comes from the 2020 census. So it's not how many residents are in each trustee area in 2023, it's 2020 numbers we are required to use. And secondly, we have to make sure that we are following the Federal Voting Rights Act, which is different from the California Voting Rights Act, and tells us to pay special attention to protected classes of voters. And so making sure that our African American community, Asian American community, Latinos, and Native American voters do not have their votes diluted by any of the boundary lines that we draw. Finally, we cannot use race or ethnicity as the primary factor in any of the boundaries that we draw. State law gives us these requirements for public hearings and the process that we have to follow. Also requires that our districts be drawn in a contiguous manner, so there's, you know, no holes in the middle of the district. And then we just have traditional principles that we will get more into when we actually look at the draft maps. And this is how we can compare one proposed map to another. So we'll talk about those more in the future. Next slide. So to put into perspective what each trustee area will look like in terms of population, we take the total population of Altadena in the 2020 census, and we divide that by the number of trustees with 5, and we get an ideal size of about 8,600 people for each trustee area. So that's what we're going to be aiming for when we present the proposed area boundaries. Next. I know you've seen a snapshot of the demographic data from the 2020 census. It's here, it's not super easy to see on the slide, but this provides us with an overview. And then once we look at proposed boundaries, all of this demographic information available for each of the proposed trustee areas as well. Next slide. So I'm gonna ask Catalina to go quickly through these, but what I want to show you is how we take that data from the table I just showed you, and then we put it onto a map so that you can visualize it geographically across Altadena. This helps us to identify different communities, different neighborhoods, and different groups of voters that we want to keep together in the same trustee area. So there is an interactive online map NDC has created for the district that shows all of this data, and you can turn on and off the layers and zoom in and out, so you can actually see geographically where the different communities of interest are within Altadena. So this is the Latino citizens of voting age. And then there's another slide, the next slide. Also the African-American citizen voting age population. These racial and demographic categories we are using those to look at to ensure compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. We also have, if we keep going in the slides, additional information that doesn't come from the 2020 census, but comes from a 5-year rolling average from the American Community Survey. So that's where we get some of these other demographic factors, like where do we see households within Altadena that have children under the age of 18 at home, or looking at different income quintiles. Where do we see voters, right? There's kind of hard to see the colors on the screen here, but there's one block group of 75% to 100% of the residents that are renters there. It's around the Stater market. So that's interesting, despite the fact that this really is an owner occupied primarily town. Next slide. And I know I'm going very quickly because I want to make sure that I have time to answer any questions that you have initially about this process. There is a link here to the online map. Use the box on the right tells you what layers are available, and for all of those categories that say percent, you know, CVAP population, and everything is displayed as a heat map. So of course, red being the 75 to 100% of that geographic area, and then down the color. So next slide, I think should close us out here. Which is just to give you a preview of, as we start thinking about where should the boundary of our trustee areas be? One of the questions that we ask is about neighborhoods and communities. So which neighborhoods and communities make sense to group together, not just geographically, but also because of the demographic characteristics of those areas, grouping them together into the same. You want to draw a boundary line right in the middle of an area that might be a very close-knit Armenian American community, and they might want to be part of the same trustee area because they have an interest in, I don't know, Armenian language library materials, right? So just giving an example of what might not be visible on that census data, but might be unique to Altadena. And might be something we want to consider, and that would come in the form of direction from the Board of Trustees to your demographers, National Demographics Corporation. So as we move along in this process, we will be looking to you for guidance, as well as any members of the public that would like to participate by making public comment or communicating with trustees in terms of what important communities would we want to keep together as we do draw boundary lines. The other thing that we're going to consider is the current members of the board and where they live, where you all live, because sometimes it can be difficult to find people to run for office in some of these smaller districts. So we want to make sure that we are taking note of who's up for re-election in 2024, and then the new rollout in a rollout over the next 2 election cycles. So there is a little bit of a transition period to where you are fully a board elected by trustee area.
Sorry,
So-
could you repeat what you just did? So, like, is it like 2 seats per or something like that? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so what happens is when he creates a handful of maps for you to consider, you will ultimately choose one map of 5 trustee areas. And then as the board, along with those boundaries, you will adopt a timeline for the elections. So you will determine, yes, if 2 trustee areas are going to have an election in 2024, which 2 those are, right? And most likely those will be the 2 in which the members up for re-election live in, right? Of course, I don't know where you live yet, but we'll look at that, because ideally in an ideal world, it's 1 current member per trustee area. Doesn't always work out that way, but we'll look at that, and that will be a priority. Other questions?
I mean, it doesn't take, I mean, a pretty broad view of the demographic maps, at least as far as like the diversity of like our communities of color. Broadly speaking, there's some concentration there. I think I'll speak for myself. Board, especially vis-a-vis board, somewhat recent. And I do believe, I'm comfortable in saying that I don't think we want as much as possible, both legally and otherwise, avoid creating a situation where we leave that concentration in the single districts, and by default, it's difficult, or at least more difficult, to maintain a board that actually reflects the entire community. So how much can you say at this point in the process about ways to try and avoid that?
Yeah, it's actually a really important point, and because under Federal Voting Rights Act, we can't, dilute the voting power, but we keep people together, right? This is the cracking and hacking that we need to avoid. What will help you make these decisions is that for each map that's proposed to you, we'll have a full demographic report. So you can see the racial and ethnic percentages of the citizens 18 plus. in each of those proposed trustee areas, and that will show you differentiation from trustee area to trustee area. Now, I don't know. I don't anticipate in Altadena that we are going to have a majority minority trustee area where there would be more than 50% of a particular group or of non-white group. But certainly if that is an option that we always bring to the table to illustrate, not to say that that's a good thing or a bad thing, because as you mentioned, there's pros and cons. And so those are just pros and cons of making that transition from at-large to by trustee area as well. So hopefully we'll be able to provide you with all the information that you need as a board to determine what's ideal.
But we're always dealing with that 8,600 number in terms of forming, okay.
Yeah, so what there is a 10% total deviation permissible by state law. So when we look at whatever the largest of the 5 trustee areas by population and the smallest, we're up to a 10% deviation between those.
Okay.
Yeah, so that will also provide you with that information. Doesn't have to be exactly 8,600.
One more. That's okay.
Yeah, please.
So I'm assuming once we approve this and it's put in place, we're gonna have to do the every 10-year adjustment like everybody else, right?
Yes, that's correct. So, another good news for you is you're doing this in 2027 or 2028, right? You will not be legally required to revisit the trustee area boundary until after the 2030 census. Which I do plan to be around for.
Is there like a supervising government agency that says, no, you can't do that district in that way are there hoops to jump through there?
No, and what we're working with when we are drawing district boundaries, in your case and in many other jurisdictions, that litigants can bring a lawsuit if there is evidence of violation of state or federal law. So NDC of all of those issues, and we try to avoid those for all clients.
And you did say one thing that I think a lot of us are thinking in the back of our minds. What if we can't get a candidate from that district? Does your group help recruit, or are we on our own?
No, and that's actually something that varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. So your governing rules may say that if there's a vacancy and nobody steps up for it, that you need to appoint a trustee, and depending on whether or not I'll just say you see this happen. This was a big worry that one of my clients, which is a town of about 5,000 people in Northern California, they were really worried about, because they were dividing their town up into 7 districts.
5,000.
Yeah, and we'll see. But
But if it did happen, would we have to, even the appointing, would we need to appoint someone from
who
that,
resides in
from
that?
that district?
Mhm.
So then we would potentially have to advertise like, only people who live in this area need to apply.
Yeah, and what I will say is you'll have plenty, it all depends on your candidate filing deadlines, but there will be plenty of time, and this is a rollout. So if 2024, there's only going to be 2 trustee areas for election, then for those remaining 3, there's even more time to recruit and encourage. And one of the positives that we often see from making the transition to bonded sessions, that you do often get neighborhoods, communities, or groups that haven't previously been represented, to put forth candidates and become more involved and more engaged, in that governing body than they previously were.
And then one more question I have, like, if it, so I know you said that we'd be using like our current addresses and, you know, comparing that to what potential maps might be. And let's say I'm not really sure who of us is up for, I think I might be like up for the next election. And, you know, I live like one block away from, you know, Katie, who is also up, like, would that be something in consideration to say like, oh, well, if we just draw the map a little bit this way, we can separate these.
One house on the block.
Yeah.
Yes, and no, we would strongly discourage making that decision if there was another factor that might, if it would be dividing a neighborhood or something like that, but provided that there are no other issues with that, yeah, that's absolutely, that's totally up to you all. Sometimes people aren't gonna run again, sometimes this or that, you never know, but that decision will rest in your all hands, and there are different options for how to deal with it. And that stuff gets really confusing when you're talking about it in the abstract. But once you sort of focus in on where you have a general sense of where you want the boundaries to be, then we can then talking about the election cycles and, which trustee lives in which area, becomes a much more concrete and oftentimes obvious solutions emerge.
Okay. Very cool. Any other questions?
I very much appreciate
Thank you.
all of your involvement in this and your excellent questions and your knowledge of what we're doing here. And I'm certainly going to be available to you all going forward for anything you need. So it's a pleasure to meet you. Thank
Would
you.
you say that there are any next steps for all those people watching at home?
The next steps for home is there is going to be another public hearing in February. It's actually going to be pretty much identical to this one. So if you're watching this one, what you want is look for that third public hearing, because that's when we'll present some draft maps. The other thing is if it's occurring to you as someone in the public who's watching this, there are neighborhoods or communities that are really important to you to keep within one trustee area, to go ahead and either submit that public comment at any board meeting, or to email any one of the board members or the staff. So that's, and again, the public can go ahead and look at the interactive map and type in their address of where they live, which is something that we certainly encourage them to do.
And I'm assuming you guys have access, like the one that comes to the top of my mind is like established historical neighborhoods. I'm assuming you guys have at least stuff that's publicly designated. You guys are looking at that too, right?
Yes, we can, if you indicate that that is relevant to your electoral areas. So a lot of that will be the direction.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about neighborhoods that can't be carved up in Altadena, stuff like that is hugely
And
important.
absolutely, I worked with Pasadena City Council on their redistricting, and their historic districts were immensely important.
Same for us, like the Meadows is a very.
Yeah.
So we would have to in advance consider what areas are, special or, and make sure that NBC was aware of that. So I guess that's kind of on us, not necessarily, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
so when we hold that February hearing, that's then or immediately after is a really good time for you all to, and you can work through Nikki to send me any directives or guidance that you have. And again, that will help me when I present draft trust areas to you. I'll be able to say, hey, when we're comparing, the green map to the purple map, we had to divide this one area. So, it's not divided in the green map, but it is in the purple map that will help you
Yeah.
as well.
Thank you.
We did want to point out that the redistricting page has been updated. / redistricting, and Kristen sent us the interactive map tool, which is already live and people can go in there and use it. And she did let us know that the DC did upwards of 200 of these last year
Wow.
and no losses. So I think we're in really good hands. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you
like
so
that.
much.
We like the new lawsuit.
So free.
Thank you for your time.
I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you so much for this.
All right.
Okay. So we have one first presentation tonight, with the annual audit. And that Nigro and Nigro, are they online?
Yeah, we have Paul here.
Paul?
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Would I be able to share my screen?
Yeah, we're gonna make you a co-host so you can.
All right. All right, good evening, everybody. I'm here to present to you the results of the June 30th, 2020 financial audit for the district. I'm going to get right into the meat and potatoes. This is page number 12 of the audit report at the bottom. There may be a different number in your package, but I'm starting on page 12 of the audit report. I'm going to start out here overall with the expenditures. We start first because you're a government funded organization. So we have to look at what those aspects are of you have under control first. The control is the aspect of your expenditures as well as revenues that you charge for your services, such as your special assessment that you already have in place and other charges for services directly from the library and other grants and contributions. So start here with salaries and wages, very comparable between the two periods there, a little increase, which would be expected during the year, a little growth and other expectations during the period there for salaries and wages. Employee benefits, CalPERS, this is 1 year behind. So CalPERS is reporting in this financial statement of June 30th, 2021. Okay. CalPERS had a 24% return on their investment that year, most of it being from their stock portfolio, which means it's an unrealized gain. Well, with that, at the end of the year being audited of June 30th, 2021.
Hang on.
Brad, can we pause for a second? We're having.
Yes.
Audio.
We're getting like every fourth word, Paul.
You're getting every fourth word.
I don't know if it's our end or your end.
I'm kind of getting every fourth word from you too throughout the earlier meeting.
That's not great.
I stopped everyone's video to see if that might help.
Yes.
And so,
Am I still sharing or can you hear me?
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and start again, let's see with the video turned on if that helps.
Your internet's fine as far as this is the machine, so there's no issue here.
Can you hear me?
Paul, again, like where you left off.
All right. All right, I'm going to start back right now.
Yeah.
All right. So talking about your employee benefits, the change here, but differences between the two periods. Can you hear me?
Oh, we were so close.
Is it not good or is it good?
It's not good.
Hmm.
Give us a minute, I guess.
Did it help them go out and come back in?
Yeah, I'm at the office on a T1, so I'm good here.
Yeah, our internet speed is fine. I think we're trying to figure out why there's a connection issue.
So wind. There was lots of,
Yeah, the wind is still brutal.
yeah.
Let me know when you're ready.
Yeah, it looks like everything seems to be good on our end. See anything specific that would be. See.
All right, well,
Yeah, go ahead, Paul. Hopefully it won't be as bad.
All right. All right, how's this going?
We'll see.
We'll see. All right. I will do my best. I'll speak slow. Hopefully that'll work better. I was talking here about the employee benefits overall. This is from CalPERS. CalPERS had a 24% gain on their investment portfolio during June of 2021. With that, there was an extra expenditure that came through here, just the way the numbers settled at the end of the year. And I'll show that to you in a minute. So I wouldn't be too worried about this because this is full accrual aspect. This isn't the cash basis. This is full accrual, but it does take into a factor something, how the numbers settled at the end of June 30th, 2021. How's that sounding? Pretty good?
we'll just make it work. It's fine.
Yeah, we're just going to make it work for now.
All right. Materials and services, very close between the two periods there. Depreciation expense is non-cash. Interest expense for the new debt and cost of issuance on the new debt outstanding. So moving forward, your special assessments between the periods, very comparable. A little more for charges for services as you're coming out of COVID, and operating grants and contributions, a lot less than the prior year that was offered no COVID relief during this period. So,
Paul, can you just go, the one big question I had is on the employee benefits. Can you just say a little bit more about what drove that and why you don't think we need to be worried about it? Because it's like,
yeah,
it's double.
yeah. Let me show you. So let me go into the report here. No, it's before pension. All right, pension. Okay. In the prior year, this was your total pension liability, 9.6 million. Okay.
Mhm.
Your pension liability increased just a little 400,000 or 500,000 to 10 million from the actuaries. Your bank at CalPERS went from 6.8 to 8.3. Your liability went down $1 million. Okay. You understand that?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. But watch what happens. That increase in your bank at CalPERS, what happens there? Here is your liability. Okay, here's your liability, net pension liability from 2.7 to 1.7. Okay. This is the factor right here. You went from 111,000 in a deferred. Now, these are the credits, okay? The deferred credits that you're getting. CalPERS is going to take that 1/5 at a time. That went from almost nothing to 1.6 million. That's $1.5 million change there. When the numbers settled out, it caused a expenditure on full accrual. But what this is saying, because this is a deferred, this aspect here is going to be one chopped up into four. So you're going to have $400,000 over the next 5 years go against your liability. It's a factoring thing. They're not going to give you all of that up front in 1 year. They're going to give it to you over 5 years. And by doing that, the numbers settled out with actually a more of a cost to you, unfortunately. Okay. Because in reality, when you look at this 1.15, in reality, when we go to the cash basis over here, what does this show? Employee benefits, only 608. This is the reality. Okay. It's a difference of $550,620 going the other direction. It's just how the numbers settled out. Okay. Because when we look at it from a cash basis over here, this is really what we're looking at. You know, here's the property tax numbers. Here's your property tax for redevelopment. Here's your special assessment, charges for services, capital grants, investment earnings, and other revenues at this point in time. Okay, so 4.2 with true costs, cash out 3.8, positive 363,200. That's what you should be looking at right there, because that's budgetary cash basis. All right, the full accrual is the full accrual, unfortunately, but that takes into consideration all your long-term liabilities that aren't really a factor here. Capital fund, this is everything that you're doing with the new debt in place. Here's the proceeds from your new debt, 23,761,105, cost of issuance 240,662. The transfers that are going in here, we're trying to keep track of in a separate fund, all capital outlay related to the building redevelopment. Okay, so the money that's coming in and your investment and earnings and investments at this point in time. Something else that's we have to look at, if you remember, at June 30th of 2022, interest rates in the market are paying 3.5% from a rapidly increasing interest rate from the Fed. The portfolio at the county where you're holding your funds and the portfolio of where your investment funds were being held in, unfortunately, their value was only at 1%. That's all they had bought. They had bought long-term. They have to wait on those maturity of those investments to buy other investments. They'd already laddered our portfolio for you. So the difference between the 3.5 of the market, which you could buy on the market, and the 1%, what you're holding, that 2%, 2.5% delta there changes this into a negative percentage. We have to present fair value financial statements for you. And on this date, if everybody liquidated their portfolio, you'd have to pay somebody to buy your portfolio because the market's bearing 3.5. I can go to the market and buy that immediately. Unfortunately, what you're holding, the investments you're holding to maturity, you're not going to lose anything. They're all being held to maturity. But there was an offset of a loss there because of the delta between the times. We hadn't seen this in 10 years. We hadn't seen a delta like that in 10 years with rising. And now you can almost buy 5% paper on the market. So things will catch up. But unfortunately, this one day in time, this is what happens. So that's, I hope you can hear me. I hope I'm sounding good. That's kind of the meat and potatoes. If there's any questions there, I'd love to entertain those from you right now.
Do you have a follow-up, Katie, or you good?
Done good.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is why I failed Econ 101, because none of this stuff makes sense to how I deal with my checkbook, so.
Well, here you go. This is positive revenues over your expenditures. So the main number that you should focus on from the financial, all the financial statements here is this number right here. You had a positive year, 363, 200 out the door. Okay. That's added to your reserves. What's left over? We've got, 4.1 million here in the general fund, 4.5 overall. Some of this is a promise to pay. Then we had some bills to pay at the end of the year here and some unearned revenue. But right now you're unassigned. You have almost $4 million in reserves in your general fund. That's a good number.
And if I remember right, the last few years at least, we've been ending with like a net positive in like the low six figures, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Each year, so it's kind of on track of what, okay.
I think
Yeah.
2020, we did not, if I remember right, 2020, we ended up pulling from reserves by the end
I think so.
because of the way we did the mid-year budget adjustment.
Something like that.
Wasn't
I
it
don't
when we had to do the payout too?
I have to go back.
Yeah, but like, at the end of the day, we've been in good shape the last several years. Our reserve balance has maintained or grown.
Yeah, I think last year was about 100,000.
I think that's right.
Positive.
I remember that number, yeah.
Yeah, and that's good. You're not outspending your growth or your activity. You're
Right.
right in there, and now we've developed these other funds here for the transparency to track what's going on with the debt. And then along with this, while we see this just now in the fall, the assessment that you put on the books, that money is going to show in here next year to pay down that debt. Okay, we're going to keep that all in the debt service fund. So next year you'll anticipate seeing the revenues that are coming in from the tax collector for that assessment, this special assessment to pay down this debt will come into this debt service fund and service that debt throughout the years going forward.
Yep. Great.
Okay. Other questions from trustees? Okay. I think we're good, Paul, unless there's other stuff that you wanted to highlight in the report for us.
That's pretty much it. Just the change here that we've added a couple other funds for the way you look, on a cash basis. Cash basis is still continuing very well for you, but that we have this, we're going to be trying to make sure that the information historically going forward, all renovations will run through the capital fund here for money transferred in from the debt service to service those capital. And then the paying down of the debt will happen within its own fund. So the general fund will stand on its own moving forward for your regular operations.
I really appreciate that. I think that's super helpful. And it also is, I think, mirroring the way we're thinking about it in our monthly reporting as well. So that's great.
Yeah. I think this is a good way to portray the district moving forward with this special obligation. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Well, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. Thank you to trustees for paying attention.
Happy New Year to you all, and we'll talk to you next year. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yep.
Paul.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to our informational reports, starting with our support groups. You see this on page 105 of the packet. So do we have our new
We do.
foundation president with us, Miss
Woo-hoo.
Anita?
Anita is on the line.
Hi there.
All right, welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Hello, everybody. So I'll just kind of give you a little bit of background. I've actually helped the foundation for the last probably 5 years with their Taste of Dina. So I've been very familiar with the foundation and the work they do and have served on the board for the last probably 2 years. And Bridget was kind of anxious to kind of move on and spread her wings a little bit. So she asked me if I could take over. So I'm excited to be here. And just looking forward to working with you, the trustees and all the liaisons in the group and the library, and hopefully make this a fantastic year for the foundation. So we began the year with a social gathering to honor two people that have termed off. It was Lola Warnick Bryant, who has served as a director since 2015, and Mark Mariscal. Mark, as you probably all know, has been pretty connected to the library for some time. So his intention is to step into a role at the Friends. So he's going to continue to be connected, and hopefully he still serves on the finance committee. So we are definitely going to be using Mark quite a bit to help us in the present and in the future. And we have 3 committees that are currently working on our operational plan, and hopefully this will open the gates for us to have a good solid 5-year strategic plan in the works. So we have 3 committees. We've been very thoughtful. We've been working on this, just kind of trying to get an outline. And fortunately, because of the size of the foundation, we feel like we can do this on our own. It's something that we feel pretty good about. We're getting very good input from the committees and from the members. So we hope to have something finalized and presented for approval in February. And then also we're currently reviewing our draft of the naming and donor recognition policy. So I know that's something that we're working with Nikki on. And we are going to also have that ready for approval in February. So hopefully we'll be able to present that to Nikki, and we'll have a final version for the trustees in late February or March. And that's pretty much it. That's what we have. Looking forward to working with all of you and getting to know the trustees. We're looking forward to working with Camila. And I have not met her, so I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that.
Perfect. I love it.
Yes. And and then also really appreciate all the work that Katie Clark has done throughout her tenure. And but looking forward to just moving on and helping the library grow and hopefully bridge the gap where the needs are most needed.
Well, thank you. Thank you for stepping up to the plate. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions for our new foundation president from the trustees? Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Anita.
Welcome. Thank you.
Great report.
Thank you.
Do we have a report from Tom and friends?
No, friends report. I can make a few comments for them.
Okay.
So the facilities committee, trustees Clark, Capel, and I met with the Friends last Friday to talk about the upcoming town hall meetings and get their feedback around the design as it stands, the schematic, just early on to make sure that they're supportive and on board with what we're trying to accomplish in the design. So I think that was good, and we'll continue to communicate with them about that. The other thing that he might bring up had he been here is they are going to be doing a 1-day book sale on February 21st. It's a Sunday in February, whatever date that is around that. It'll be like usual, the 19th. No, I think it's the 26th. It is the 26th. So February 26th, Friends members will have exclusive access from 10 to 12, and then from 12 to 4 regular book sale. We're trying to encourage more of these 1-day book sales to move some items out. And we did decide on Sunday, not Saturday, because in the event of weather issues, the library is closed, and it's much easier to give them access to the building than on a Saturday where we'd almost have to close the library for them to do a book sale. So I was glad to see they chose Sunday. I think it works out because you never know if it's going to rain anymore. And of course, the last book sale they did, it did rain that one day, basically. So that's what I would assume. Their next meeting, they meet on the first Tuesday of the month, so that will be on February 7th.
Okay. Thank you, Nikki.
Yep.
And continuing on, district director's report.
All right, good evening. So I'd like to start my director's report this evening by expressing my sincere condolences to everyone affected by the shooting in Monterey Park this past Saturday night. Literally 2.7 miles from where I live. What a horrible, senseless tragedy in our backyard. We have drafted a statement that is going to be on the screen that we will post later tonight or tomorrow. I thought I should read the statement into the record. So the Altadena Library District is extremely saddened by the mass shooting on Saturday, January 21st at a Lunar New Year celebration in nearby Monterey Park, California. We send our deepest condolences to all affected by this terrible violent act and mourn the senseless loss of lives. We also stand in solidarity with members of the Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI communities and extend our support and partnership to our local AAPI organizations in the wake of this tragedy. Being that we're the library, we wanted to provide resources. So for those who would like to honor the victims, the city of Monterey Park has established a memorial at the Monterey Park Civic Center. Community members struggling with fear, confusion, or distress can access counseling resources through the disaster distress helpline. You can call or text 1-800-985-5990 for yourself or on behalf of a loved one. The National Child Traumatic Stress Network has developed resources to help families and communities navigate what they see and hear, acknowledge their emotions, and find ways to cope with mass shootings. So are some of these resources at the web address. We all want to end gun violence. You can learn more about the efforts of government agencies and community organizations, and perhaps find a way to help at the California Department of Justice Gun Violence Prevention website. It will be posted on our website, social media channels, and we're probably going to email our full email list, the statement as well. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware of this and in support of moving forward with it. I don't know if you guys want to comment.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say, I think as some of you guys know, my husband and I are both pretty involved in the dance community in the greater Los Angeles area, and this event, of course, was a Star Ballroom in Monterey Park, and there's an additional incident at Lili Dance Studio in California, and the two were connected as the same individual. And you know, we have the privilege of working directly with the folks at Star and at Lili for many years, and we know them and we care about them, and it's such a sad situation because I can't think of a more welcoming and warm group of people. So I'm glad that we're saying something, and certainly, you know, if I hear about anything that's happening in, you know, in the dance community or in the civic organizations that support either of those, I'll pass those along to you, Nikki, but just such a sad and senseless event, and we really just, our hearts go out to everybody involved.
Yeah, it's been tough for the labor union I work for as well. We represent all of the healthcare workers at both Garfield Hospital and Monterey Park. And there's another hospital in Alhambra that they actually went into lockdown during this, in addition to trying to care for as many people as possible. So it's been tough for our organization as well, for sure. Appreciate it, Nikki.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. So moving on into hiring or staffing updates. We were sad to hear the news that Danielle Galvan Gomez, who was with us just over a year, accepted a highly coveted position with the Arts and Culture Department with Los Angeles County that I believe she had applied for over a year before she got the job. Things take a while, but she was definitely sad to go, but she has a really strong arts background. And from what I understand, it's a really competitive department to try to get into in the county. So we wish her well. We hate to see her leave. But her last day with us was January 5th. So in terms of hiring, we're doing a lot of recruiting right now. We had very promising second round interviews last week to hope to hire a youth and family services manager. I hope I have information to share within the next few days about that. We also held our first round interviews with an external panel for the Bob Lucas branch librarian position, and have our second round of these potentially final round this coming Thursday. So really excited to hire a librarian to work with Diana, who's here tonight, especially in light of the fact that Danielle also worked full-time at Bob Lucas. So we have some main library staff helping out in around, but I know Diana will appreciate. getting those
Diana's
jobs
holding it
filled.
down, Bob Lucas.
Yeah, she's our sole full-timer over there right now. So we did post the Bob Lucas library assistant pretty much as soon as we got, her resignation. I posted it on government jobs and this time it elicited what, 40, 50? I mean, there's been a lot of applicants, so I feel really, encouraged that we're gonna have some good candidates. The first review of applications was supposed to be this last Friday. We've been reviewing them all along and hope to schedule an external panel soon and have somebody hired there as well. We did post, I think on last Wednesday, the adult services manager position, which we did hire in 2019 and then have not filled since, but we've decided to post that position to oversee the adult services department. If you know of anyone that might be interested, please spread the word to get them to apply. I did include service awards just because we had some cute pictures that I thought I should share and to congratulate that group again. I am very excited to announce that we've onboarded Municipal Resources Group. I gave a full description of Patty Francisco's background in my report if you'd like to look at it, but as you can see, she has many, many years of experience in different agencies that I think are going to be really beneficial for the staff of the district. She did attend our all-staff meeting on January 5th, presented about the variety of things that she can assist with, gave her phone number, her email, and has encouraged staff to reach out if they have any concerns or questions. And then also is scheduling what she calls Tea with Patty once a week right now. She's going to be here on Wednesday this week and meeting with at least 3 staff. I think she told me I've scheduled time with her. In addition to that, it wasn't in my report, but I worked with her to develop a staff feedback survey. So that went out last week on Thursday. Staff have until next Monday to fill it out. We're hoping to get 100% participation. And the plan is to share the results of the survey with the board next month.
Great.
So lots of good work already started with them. The other thing I'm working with MRG on is updating our attendance policy and paid and unpaid leave policies, which we're hoping to bring to the board soon. I did want to highlight that we have 2 really great art exhibits at the library right now. Throughout the main floor, you can look at beautiful ceramic cactus sculptures created by artist Mary Vaslich. Some of them are very convincing, I have to tell you. And they are for purchase. So if you like cacti and want to take a look, I'd encourage it. There's also an exhibition in this very room we're sitting in called Eyes on Altadena, done in partnership with the Altadena Historical Society. Thank you to Catalina for her pivotal role in helping get the display, as well as, I think you hung it all yourself, right?
No, it was Mel, so.
Mel and you.
Yes.
Mel
I
and Catalina.
assisted Mel. I was assisting her, I was not.
But you did play a pivotal role. I did want to point out that the work of these photojournalists are Walt Mancini, Herb Shoebridge, and our very own trustee, Terry Andrews. They're right behind you guys, actually. So please check it out. I did want to make sure to mention out loud that we have 2 main library design town halls coming up shortly. We really want as many residents to participate and provide feedback in this very crucial library design. Residents can participate both in person and virtually, which I think will again increase how much feedback we're getting. The dates of those are this coming Saturday, January 28th at 2:30. People can attend in this room or, like I said, register for the Zoom link, as well as the following Wednesday, February 1st at 6:30 p.m. We do have a couple flyers in the back too, if you want to grab those. And there's a link in my report too to the flyer. So Ashley and I had a great time at the event that Anina mentioned, which was the Altadena Library Foundation Board Recognition Dinner. There were like 25 people there. It was a huge turnout, really amazing to think about how far the foundation's come with that board in even the last couple of years. I also wanted to thank Mark Mariscal and Lola Warlick Bryant for their 6 years of service on the foundation board. They have done really great work for us. So thank you to both of them. Also a reminder that our wonderful second Saturdays have returned. On January 14th, my husband's best friend and I and my son attended Mighty Love, who includes our very own Ben Eisen, that provided vocals as well as amazing bass player skills. I also wanted to thank the Friends. They're the ones who give us the funding to be able to put on the second Saturday concert series. So thank you to them and for Tom Rupert, who was in attendance that night. And also thank Altadena Ale House and my curated favorites and typically El Patron. It was really, really raining that night, so they had to cancel, but they show up every month to make sure everybody has food and drinks and merriment. So again, we have those scheduled through June on every second Saturday. Please spread the word that our Read Local Shop Local program has relaunched. Following the meeting, I'd encourage all of you to go to the desk and get your rewards card. What patrons can do is take those to our participating businesses, get them initialed, and then once you get 10 initials from visiting these businesses, you can get very cool library swag with logo included. A couple of the businesses participating are Altadena Ale House, Webster's Pharmacy, Hoopla, Fair Oaks Burger, and more. So go get your rewards card. And if there's businesses that you think may want to participate, please send them our way so we can get them included. So I also wanted to wish our 2 poets laureate the best of luck in applying for a fellowship by the Academy of American Poets. This $50,000 award opportunity was put in place to honor poets of literary merit that are appointed to serve in civic positions and enable them to undertake meaningful, impactful, innovative projects that engage their fellow residents. I believe the deadline is in mid-February, and they'll know whether or not they were awarded it in June of 2023. And I think that's enough for tonight. So happy to answer any questions you might have.
Please.
Well, actually, not.
Oh, I'm like, come on, Mila.
We don't want to, cut down your momentum ahead of the more exciting report you have next.
Financials, yeah.
Well, I have the statistical update as part of your presentation. I noticed, and you helped us identify a little bit, the opening rate for the eConnect newsletter, which is terrific. That's really very high. And, it seems like that's the thing that's really gonna pay dividends in the future when people are hitting us online like that. So congratulations on that one.
Yeah, yep, lots of credit to Bryn. Yeah, 52% last month. And I was like, is that even possible? And then I looked in Constant Contact, and of the 16,210 emails that went out, 7,360 opened it.
That's amazing.
That's so cool.
it's- Yeah. So obviously it's providing the information they want.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for pointing that out, Terry. I would give her kudos.
Okay. Financial report it is.
Whew, okay, and we do have Trustee even with us tonight. She's not on camera, but can join us if we need her to. December was an interesting month. So as of the end of December, we're currently at 50% of our budget year. Year-to-date expenditures are $2,081,078, with year-to-date revenues $2,229,384, reflecting a net income of $148,306. In the past, we've been given our full property tax assessments in December, but this was not the case last month. Our accountant and I, Trustee and I, have been trying to reach LA County to find out why that was the case, and I do not believe have had success reaching anyone there. We are under the assumption that we'll get the full number sometime in January, but that really puts a cramp in being able to do mid-year adjustments in February.
Yeah.
Right now, the budget meeting is scheduled for a week from Thursday, and I do not see that possibly happening. We might have to shift, either do a special meeting of the budget committee to be able to get the numbers in February, or we may have to present those in March. I'm not quite sure, but we're trying to get information about why it is that we didn't get the full allocation. But we can talk more about that if you guys have more questions, but total cash with the county right now is $4,281,538, which more than satisfies our 6-month operating expenses, and total assets are $29,093,916. The one other thing I did want to point out was, Christy and I had met to talk about the capital fund report because I didn't see like the $23 million anywhere on it. It was just what's in liquid cash at the trust bank. So we worked on a new report, which is on page 122, that shows all of the bond proceeds, including the money that is invested by our trust bank. So that's why you saw this additional report, so that you could see the invested money as well. And as I mentioned, we have Christy with us tonight to answer any questions we may have. And hopefully we have answers.
Is that treasurer tax collector that is supposed to be able to give us that answer? Do you know which department in the county?
What department is it, Christy? Is it controller auditor? I can't remember off the top of my head. You should join us.
Where I can get that answer.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me? Okay?
There
Sorry,
you are.
sorry about that. Took a minute to get through my camera. It is the controller, the auditor control, Department of the Auditor Controller. We've reached out to them in multiple cases and they have not responded. I really think it's a case of just the entries not being allocated. I don't think there's any question when I look at the math. It looks like you're going to have a slight increase from last year. I can't answer without getting a hold of anyone why the entries weren't made this month.
Connect with me offline. I think I can.
Okay.
I noticed that they did charge us the full amount for tax collecting.
Oh. For that.
Well, you know.
Yeah, we're at 6% of that budget.
Yeah, and again, it's a struggle to want to do mid-year budget adjustments when we don't know what the allocation is. So, because there's many lines that will be adjusting.
Right.
Especially like there was no money for the trustee election, so that's 75,000 we need to reallocate, but Christy and I are, well, now we have Jason, that can hopefully connect us with somebody.
Yeah, if you've got an in, that would be great. I've actually reached out even beyond departments just to get somebody to answer me or to get me to the right area. No response.
Yeah, I've got just a bit of an.
But it does also strengthen our argument to get the money and then move it to class,
Yeah.
where people will answer the phone.
Agreed.
Yeah, because they're all actually working in the office, so there's really no excuse.
That capital fund schedule is really welcome. I mean, that's something the CFD committee can use too.
Yeah.
For sure.
We definitely will.
Are you open for questions right now?
Yeah.
Okay, one other thing I wanted to point out, it's just a little thing, but you mentioned on the, on page 115, a portion of the expenses pertain to capital projects and the legal fees. So it struck me as that those might have been commingled with our regular library work and what's going on with the capital fund. So when it comes to just that item, legal fees, was it a question of them being misallocated on the bill or something? Or I mean, do you feel like you're able to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak, when it comes to the capital stuff and the stuff that we're doing just for the library?
I think you can speak to that better than me. Christy.
Sure. What happens a little bit with the attorney is they do separate it by subject matter, but they had held on to invoices and presented them all at one time. And so when the processing was done, one payment was made to them. Yvonne has already started the requisition process to have US Bank now reimburse Altadena. But yes, moving forward, if they are presenting them on a timely basis, yes, one check will go out of the proceeds and another will come directly from Altadena. This was just kind of a catch-up transaction. And it's at this point, I think it was only a few $1,000s, but they will get, you know, or potentially could get higher. So.
Thank you for that good explanation. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Anything else on the financial report? The finance month in January. Speaking of finances, CFD committee report. I'm assuming Trustee Andrews, any highlights?
Well, I put a little report on in the packet, based on the last meeting we had, which was January the 11th. The last meeting before that we had was actually in October. We tried to meet in December, but we didn't get a quorum for that. And we're in a transition right now, as you all might remember. We had 5 members on that committee, 3 from the community and 2 from the board. That was Rushmore and I. In October, we passed a motion that it narrows our committee down to 3 people now, and will remain a standing committee. We'll have an agenda that's published and so on, with 1 community member and 2 trustee members, and that's Boone and myself as the trustee members. So we streamlined things. Most of the heavy lifting for this committee occurred the year or 18 months after everything was formed. And we had to hire all these agencies, as you know, and get contracts done. And so it was really a Herculean effort, and we had a terrific team. Kim Kenny was one of them. You remember her. Jim Vitale and also Amy Lightford all helped in that and did a good job. And of course, Nikki did an amazing job, if I may, just in figuring out how to bid for these certain services and so on. We're still using those templates, I think, going forward. So it was a good effort. And now we're going to cut back to a quarterly meeting system instead of every month, the way that we were before. And I view us as more of an oversight committee, hence my question just now about little discrepancies and how money's allocated and so on. And I think that we've got an enthusiastic community member in Doug Cauliflower. And again, Nikki's idea, and might have discussed in one of our former meetings, was to have somebody from the Altadena Town Council on the committee, because that helps spread the word to them about what we're doing and what's going on. So we also, there's I noted at the bottom about SB 165, the Local Agency Special Tax and Bond Accountability Act, was a report that we had to do, and we're in full compliance with that, having notified the board of that issue at the last meeting. So I think we're caught up. So look for us to stay busy with this, but on a quarterly basis now and with a smaller group. Any questions?
Thank you, Terry. So moving on, Facilities Committee Ad Hoc Committee Report. Katie?
Yeah, so I'll just highlight 3 things, 2 that are in the report and 1 that Nikki alluded to a little bit. So lots of stuff going on, as you can see. A couple of things. 1, I wanted to update you on where we are with our offsite facility storage. So in the period between when this report was prepared and now, we've had the opportunity to take a look at the options at Franklin, and it looks like that might be a pretty good solution if we can get all of our stars to align. So we're going to be investigating what that looks like, specifically what those numbers look like, but in terms of available space and accessibility, it seems like a pretty good option for offsite storage. So that's really encouraging, really exciting news there. I also wanted to highlight the development on the historic reading wall mural at Bob Lucas. So we were able to have a community meeting on that front, and in a really exciting development, the original artist who worked with Armory Center of the Arts with the kids from Jackson and folks in the community has agreed to come on board and help us preserve and repaint that mural. So that's awesome. It's so exciting. Some of the folks who were, the classroom teacher who was involved with the kids originally who were part of that project was there to help advise as well. So we're looking forward to moving forward with that preservation and repainting process so that that mural is around for the next 20, 30, 50 years.
And a shout out to Diana for helping making those connections.
It was, and not only connections, but like Diana did this deep dive on the history of the whole process, and it was amazing to see the photos of the kids who were there and newspaper clippings. And it wouldn't be an Altadena thing if there wasn't also controversy or people were like, this mural is terrible. And now, of course, like we all love it. So a huge thank you, to Diana for all of that hard work. And then the third thing, Nikki mentioned this earlier, we did have a conversation with the Friends about kind of their space and the way that works in the library plan moving forward. And you guys will hear more about this at the town halls, but I did just want to highlight that one of the really exciting things we've been able to do is increase the storage space that the Friends will have. But more than that even is double their retail shelving space. So they'll be able to have double the shelving that they have currently upstairs in their new space as it's being envisioned, which is really, really exciting because as we all know, there's plenty of demand for book sale items, and so this will give them twice as much space to display those for sale. So all very conscious of that. Any questions?
Thank you.
A comment, and that is echoing your enthusiasm about the reading wall and so on.
Yeah,
The other day I was riding by there and I spent some time with it. The book parking lot was wide open.
yeah,
And when you read it and you see the pictures, it's almost like it was from another era, even though it's not that old.
1999.
Yeah, it's not that old, but it's almost like it was from another time altogether. It had this sort of enchantment to it. And I thought, gosh, that if there's anything worthy of saving and refurbishing, it's definitely that wall.
Totally.
So great news on that.
Yeah, yeah. The photos that Diana found for us, the colors when it was originally painted, I didn't live in Austin at that time, but wow, the difference in like how vibrant and just like impactful it was. It's gonna be really exciting to be able to return it to that condition.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is the team at Racklin Partners was sharing with us too, that, just the changes and differences in materials,
Yeah,
20 plus years later. I think there's an expectation, even though that's a really difficult surface and material to work with. I think there's an expectation that we should be able to keep it looking bright and vibrant for longer than it did last time.
And I don't think anybody's ever tagged it or anything like that, right? I mean, it stayed in its perfect state for all this time, I think.
I don't know. I mean, Jonathan, you might know, or Diana, you might know. I don't know that we've ever had any in. Have we?
Just crafting.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, since I've been here, I haven't seen any, but that's Diana said it's back.
Yeah, yeah.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So you said the offsite facility is gonna be just storage?
No,
What does that mean?
storage and hopefully public facing access as well. So places where, like, hopefully we'll have some space where we can have children's collection and maybe some adult collection, maybe some program space as well. Certainly storage is important, but we want to have a place where, when the main library is closed, that people can come and pick up books, and maybe we'll have some meeting space or some availability there. So.
And is that the school, it's the one that's close to Bob Lucas,
Yeah.
right? That was closed?
That's right. That's right.
It was cold. I didn't even know.
Yeah, it closed last year, right? 2 years ago?
Its own controversy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, indeed.
Didn't go there.
Okay, well, thank you, Katie. So our liaison reports. So Terry has submitted another amazing government liaison report.
Well, I don't know.
So I'll leave it to Terry for the highlights and then any questions that folks have.
Well, let me just amend real quickly, the last report I gave regarding the CFP committee. I don't know if I mentioned that Doug Cauliflower is the Altadena Town Council member who was just reelected to 4612, Census Tract 4612. And he seems like a very engaged and enthusiastic member of the group.
Great.
Sorry about that, Doug. And then the government liaison report, this was actually, I took this from an LA Times article that I saw right after the beginning of the year. And it sort of ran down laws that were coming into effect that were done at the last legislative session. One thing I didn't know, I never really thought about it, was that most of those laws start to be enforced on the first day of the new year. And it occurred to me that there are several laws in here that are pending or that are now in place at the state level that do have an impact on what's happening in Altadena. And let me go through them real quick. Much of the text in here is from the LA Times, a little bit of the breakdown on what it means and so on. But I added a lot of language that comes directly from the legislative sites themselves that talks about the letter, the actual language in the law. And starting right at the top, there's on page 131 of the packet, there's a workplace series of laws that was preceded by a reminder that the California minimum wage will increase to $15.50, which is pretty good. Others will have minimum wages even higher. That really isn't part of the, the agenda for the library that I had in here, but I thought it was of note. you look at Assembly Bill 1041, it expands California's paid family leave law to allows employees to add to the list one extended family member or a person they consider to be family. And when I look at our HR manual, Nikki, that might be something that we need to add to that. I guess we talked to the attorneys about it, because this is a new law that actually grants that privilege to certain people. And what it means is that if you've got a best friend, I'm an employee and I've got a best friend who's suffering from a disease in which he or she needs a lot of help, then I am allowed a certain amount of leave time at the state, it's a state law. You can, it's a part of the California Family Rights Act. And then on that same note, there's a Assembly Bill 1949, which passed, again, part of that California Family Act, that says employees are now eligible for 5 days of job-related or job-protected bereavement leave if a close family member dies, which I think is a little bit different than what we have. I'm not sure. So those are a couple of things that we can, fix up our policy manual if we need to, based on the changing labor laws. Then we come to one that is very interesting to me because it involves cycling and pedestrian safety. And this would be probably of more interest, I think, generally to the Altadena Town Council, who's done a really good job of keeping safe streets on the agenda for their meetings and committees and so on. And this Assembly Bill number 1909, now says that vehicles must move over to an adjacent lane of traffic if one is available before passing or overtaking a bicycle. And that for people that ride, that's a huge thing because it makes you feel a lot more safe about what's going on. So that's a very welcome thing. The other thing is that it says it will not require governments to have bicycles licensed in their jurisdictions. And what that means is that I suspect is that checking somebody's bicycle license isn't a sort of a search and seizure technique with a police group or something, that they've kind of removed that temptation from police to do that kind of a thing.
There's also, the state also approved, you can also get up to $1,500 in grant money to purchase an electric.
Oh, that's
bicycle.
great. I didn't see that.
The community and stuff, yeah.
And then moving on to Assembly Bill 2147, said pedestrians would be able to legally cross the street outside of a designated intersection without the threat of a jaywalking citation, unless they are not reasonably careful to make sure things are approaching, which sounds like a little thing, but part of this is that pedestrians were being rousted apparently for jaywalking.
Yeah, I just
And
got
this
a
takes
ticket.
that option away from
What
law
do you do?
enforcement.
Really?
I just got a ticket.
Where did
I have never gotten
I-
a jaywalking.
that's
ticket.
amazing? Oh my gosh.
I'm very excited about that. Thank you.
In Altadena?
It was in Pasadena.
Oh, of course it was in
Typical.
Pasadena.
Typical.
You? Never
Yeah,
mind.
that's
I don't even
wild.
wanna-
Yeah. Go ahead, Terry, sorry.
That's exactly why Terry put it in the report.
Yes.
Sounds like I struck a nerve over there.
You did.
There's AB 2147, and this has to do with pedestrians. This bill would prohibit a peace officer as defined from stopping a pedestrian for specific traffic infractions unless they're reasonably careful. Oh, actually, I just think I'm just repeating that one. Yeah, I'm sort of repeating that one. Let me move on to civil rights and government. AB 2799, which is at the bottom of page 134, says that forms, which this is very interesting to me, and this has more to do with the philosophical role of a library, if you ask me, than it does, for anything that we might run into. But it says forms of creative expression, from music to books, are now restricted from being used as evidence in criminal proceedings. And it said that it found that many men of color, particularly Black men, were being prosecuted using their lyrics, which I suppose might have been for rap music, but it also extends to books and so on. And to me, that's sort of a reverse censorship, if you see what I'm saying. I think that that's a step in the direction of free speech to have something like that happen. And it's also saving many people from having to answer, for their lyrics and their publications to in the court of law, which would be a sad thing. Apparently that's been going on. Then we come to Senate Bill 1100. And this applies to us directly. If we get back to the days when we have an unruly audience in our meetings, it says California school boards, city councils, and boards of supervisors would have clear authority to remove disruptive participants from their meetings, and that would include us, the special district. Senate Bill 1100 modifies the Brown Act, a 1953 state law that requires an opportunity for public input during meetings to increase accessibility and transparency for local government. And this bill would authorize the presiding member of a legislative body conducting a meeting or their designee to remove or cause removal of an individual for disrupting the meeting. You have to go through a couple of preliminary warnings and so on, but that tool was not available to anybody before this, it sounds like.
So that's gonna be Catalina that
Yeah,
gets to.
who's the muscle?
That's definitely kind of.
A new tool that I have.
Terry said that I now have the power.
I wasn't listening. Were you talking about using the hook to get them up? Yeah,
It didn't mean it, I guess after.
I know, you don't have to go.
and this is the last one, and I appreciate your indulgence, given that we've had a 300-page packet here. Took up a couple percent of that. Assembly Bill 1925, which is really interesting and applies directly to us. It says basically that to be appointed a county or district office, it will no longer be required to be a registered voter in that jurisdiction.
So I don't know if I agreed with your reading of this, because it said that it was only true for appointed offices, not elective offices. And all of our trustee offices are elective offices, even if nobody runs, it's still an elective office.
But what about those that we appoint for vacancies?
That's what I'm saying, is it's still an elective office. I thought my reading of this was that it was talking about appointed positions, like when the mayor, for example, appoints somebody in the city, you don't have to be a registered voter.
Okay,
But I don't know, that, I was curious.
well, I think
because
it's probably worth a call to
I
somebody next
agree
time
with
that
you.
pops
I think
up.
it's
So
worth a discussion to clarify.
I don't see this board ever appointing somebody from outside the district, but it'd be good to know.
Yeah, we're drawing lines to keep everybody in. So-
You know why? It'd be interesting to know what's behind that, because I could see some positive reasons potentially for that. I could see some negative.
Yeah,
I would venture to guess it might be something like, you know, you have like these commissions. I think about in Glendale, we had Arts and Culture Commission. Maybe you, as a council person, want to appoint someone that works for the city but doesn't live in the city.
yeah, that's
To
right.
serve on, in that capacity, for example. It might be something like that, that it doesn't require even them to live in that area. I don't know.
If you don't have citizenship too,
I'm just,
right?
that's one way to theorize, like if someone is in the city and works there but doesn't live there, or isn't a registered voter there
Right.
for expertise or something like that.
I know there's been a conversation on like Pasadena's Northwest Commission. Sometimes they've talked about like, oh, we should have somebody from like Altadena because it's. Or that, but you can't because you have to be a registered voter in Pasadena.
We should have a seat since they managed to carve out all the.
I
water
don't
rights.
disagree with you. Go back and take it back.
That weird little Altadena island over
Um,
there. Yeah.
right, that's it for me. Thank
It was
you.
really interesting. Terry.
Yeah.
Thank
Great
you.
report, Terry.
I love
Thank
these.
you.
Okay. Do we have any trustee reports? I've made the people that absolutely need to know aware, but I will be out of town for the February board meeting. So I think probably Nikki and Camila and I will connect just on the agenda and that stuff before I leave.
You're officially gone when?
The 10th to the 27th. I don't see any.
Well, then technically you're in town.
Well,
Come here from LA.
you can have that conversation with Porter and whatever that enforcement agency, yes.
Right.
Maybe you can fast track me. no unfinished business, so moving on to new business. First, with the operational plan results, so this report back informational, so I'm assuming Nikki, that's.
Yes, all right, here we go. So typically you would get this report in January. It's January, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're getting both the 2023 and the 2022. I'm being confusing. Normally, we would bring you the next year's plan the month before for you to approve, but as you know, we were building it off of the strategic plan review that we did. So that's why you're getting both tonight. Typically, they would come in 2 different months. So first we'll talk about our 2022 operational plan, which again is built around the 3 strategic priorities that we identified in the 2020 strategic plan. It is like, it's gotten better. I think it's only like 10 pages long in reporting back, but this was put together by the management team as well as the librarian level, as well as all the staff, to make sure that we reported out everything that was accomplished. I thought I would just point out a couple of those accomplishments from last year. One being a huge expansion of our library of things and substantial increase to their circulation as well. I think that was a really cool thing and something that I hear a lot about and had a couple articles written about as well.
Yeah.
So that was really great. I'm also really impressed with our continued equity, diversity, and inclusion training and professional development. We're continuing to use the very impressive Project Ready curriculum, and it has really provoked a lot of great conversation and discussion, especially in the groups when they meet. Managers are discussing it when they have one-on-one meetings. They're what we call work plans with their staff. But like, I know I lead a team of, I think it's about 8 staff, and how many are in yours? 7. I mean, some of the discussions are like, that's why we're doing it. It's really great. So, and thank you to David. We've had to do it in cohorts because we weren't thinking like, well, everybody can just keep going on. You gotta start at the beginning. So we have 3 different cohorts going through at different stages of it. But again, I think we've done some really great work around building EDI concepts into everything that we're doing. We launched our Altadena Library District app with our vendor, MyLibro. We have noticed that we continue to get more and more people signing up, but the people that do have it downloaded use it heavily. So that tells me the app, obviously I use it as well, but the people that find it love it. So we need to keep promoting because the people that find it, again, I think it's been a really great tool, and we're continuing to work with MyLibro to make it even better. We had a very robust teen volunteer program this last year. 87 teens volunteered in 2022, which I just think is insane. For a combined 1,310 hours at 208 different volunteer shifts. I mean, kudos to Isabel Briggs. The kids really love working with her and love all of the programming. Like, they're so pivotal to Second Saturdays and our 55th anniversary, and everything that we do is largely driven by the teen volunteer help. So kudos to them.
Do they get hours for that, like signed off on, like for schools that
Yeah.
require it?
Yep. But what's interesting is a lot of them, even once they meet that requirement, keep coming back.
That's cool.
Yeah, I like, we see a lot of the same kids that, you know, work the tables at all of our events and really represent the district well. They're just a really great group of kids.
So the one specific thing that stood out to me in that part was the fact that we have teen volunteers that are like actively part of the diversity audit. Like that one specific piece of information kind of blew my mind. Like it's like, I don't know, like of all, like it's just one more thing on the list of amazing stuff that we're up to. And like, it just brings to mind, I think for one of our past public meetings, town councilwoman Victoria Knapp like posted just a, hey, you know, remind folks, come check this out. And there was somebody, I don't know if she was like new to the community or whatnot, she, you know, posted like, you know, she hadn't been to the library, so like this kind of typical, like, oh, you know, people really using the libraries right now, blah, blah. And like the teen council and all the stuff going on with teens is like that. I'm like, well, here's just one example, right? And she was like, oh my God. Right. And it's like, yeah, it's like, it's pretty incredible.
And I mean, that's kudos to the Youth and Family Services Department that created a really great tool in doing diversity auditing so that the teens could be trained in helping us do it. You know, I think, so yes, agreed. I also wanted to point out the $20,000 grant to reimagine our Fab Lab from the Pasadena Community Foundation. This was through a library foundation application, and we've been able to purchase 2 3D printers, a screen printer, iPads, Cricut tools, and much more. So I think that's great, and the sign-ups just keep going up for that. We also have been expanding the Curiosity Connection visits throughout the community, including Avison Movie Nights, Altadena Farmers Market, events at local schools, Farnsworth Park, Mariposa Junction. I mean, really, it feels like there's not an event in Altadena that the band's not at. I'm excited for them to finally build the second one, which is in the 2023 plan to expand our footprint even more. And then, of course, our continued progress on the 2 library building renovations through regular facility committee meetings, efforts by our moving and inventory team led by Jonathan in preparations for the closures, and additional grant funding that we got from the state library this year to fully carry out the projects in the ways that we hope to. So, and that's just a couple in from it, but happy to answer any questions. This is just information also.
Any questions, trustees? I guess we can go right into 2023 operational plan. This will be an action item.
Okay, so as I mentioned, we pretty much already picked off a lot of this work. As usual, we built the operational plan with the help of staff at every level in the organization. The management team and I sat down and we looked at last year's goals. You know, we agreed to have 7 or 8 goals. In the past, you guys have seen we've had like 25, and it's like a 45-page document by the time we're done. And we looked at the goals this year through the lens of what was recommended to us through the strategic plan review. So those items that the consultant Danielle Milam shared with us about things to be paying attention to as we move forward in the next few years. So the managers agreed to those goals, and then we shared out the document with all of the staff. Managers met with their departments to talk about the objectives that we're trying to achieve. So we're presenting tonight our suggested operational plan for this next year. Some of the more notable objectives, I'm just going to basically read off of my report, is doing critical analysis and planning of the library collections in consideration of the 2 upcoming building closures. You know, we really need to analyze how much we continue to buy in print versus digital, what types of digital collections we want to build. Are there other digital resources that would make sense while the library is closed? So continuing to look at that. Our IT and technical services manager, David Zierbaugh, has been working closely with our assistant director, Ashley Watts, and the collection selectors team to really analyze what gets used, what makes the most sense to spend the money on, and making adjustments accordingly. But again, it's going to be an interesting process, and we'll work closely with Baker and Taylor, as well as Cloud Library and Hoopla and the other resources, as I'm sure they have also helped other library systems that go into closing, and what that looks like, and what you keep purchasing and storing and all of that good stuff. I'm really excited about the second bullet point, which is establishing individual development plans that are customized to each staff member's goals and growth. As I've mentioned, all of the managers do what we call work plans, which are monthly one-on-ones with staff. But we want to build upon that in having conversations with the individual members. Like, just because you're an A doesn't mean you have the same goals, because you're the same classification. So that we're going to work with MRG and Patty Francisco to develop plans for each individual employee, so that we're helping them achieve what it is that they want to do into the future. We're also looking at development of customized marketing strategies to reach the community members that are currently not using or aware of library services and programming. One idea of which one of the trustees gave me today, which is potentially doing some direct mailing and looking at, I talked to Brenda about it today and she agreed, like there's just some people that we're not going to connect with if we're only emailing and virtually trying to connect.
Yeah.
So, again, exploring more ways of connecting with more members of the community. And then lastly, integration of our second mobile library unit, which, you know, we wanted to kick off homebound services. Right now, we do offer it to some extent, but not on a wide scale. So by getting the van, we really hope to be able to like connect with more of the community members that can't physically come to the library and be able to deliver to them. As well as integrating our library materials vending machines in at least 2 locations in Altadena. That RFP did close. David and I are hoping to bring a recommendation next month. And then hopefully spend some of that money from the California Student Grant. So those are just a couple. As you saw, there's pages and pages of them, but happy to take any suggested edits or additions, but then recommend that you guys vote to approve.
I'm looking forward to my merch personally.
Oh, good.
I get it. I did, now that I know that Barracks Burger is like participating, they make a killer steak sandwich. We gotta get
That
that.
place is so busy.
It's, well, it's big.
Which one?
Barracks Burger.
Oh.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And
And they
I
were,
love it.
they're a really great partner. I do want to point that out. Ashley and I's gift to staff, for the holidays was a $10 gift card there. And she gave us a discount, which she didn't have to do.
Aw.
But I mean, like, they've just been an incredible partner. So I'm happy to give them some kudos for sure.
This is just a suggestion, but it could be like a fun, potentially even like a team volunteer thing. So I saw that one of the objectives is to create a public map of rural free libraries, which awesome idea. It occurred to me that, you know, one thing some libraries and a lot of like museums and places are doing are putting together walking tours, and you could have like a literacy walking tour, a little free library walking tour with like kind of themed books at each stop, and that could be a fun way to get people into the orbit of them and also to, you know, give them something to do. Like there's a reason to go check it out when I go to it.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
There is a map through the national thing. The problem is most people don't know about it and don't register for it.
And I think you have to purchase your little free library from them to get on their map.
What?
I think that,
I know
I
that
could be
part.
wrong, but I think that is.
That's lame.
So we get, like, we
Yeah, it's
have
a
a
hell of a
lot of.
creating
other
their own
ones. So we have created a map and then a list of stops. Cause I'm like Helen Milner largely works on that.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, like, we have a lot more on our list than what are
Oh,
on
yeah.
the little free library map.
It's a racket.
Yeah.
So with the kickoff on the Stop and Shop program, I noticed in the Libro app, it's not like integrated. Is there a way to do something where it would also show up on the app?
So we actually added the,
Coupons, right?
yeah, so there is a coupon section. We used to previously offer through the Read Local, Shop Local previous
Right.
iteration, there was a discount associated with the businesses. We recently updated the listings of all the businesses and removed the discount component. It just has the location
Right.
and the business information. We're working with MyLibro to see how we can adjust the wording on that, so it doesn't say coupon anymore.
Right.
Especially with the real estate, it's like a little button, so it's really difficult to try and figure out exactly what we put. But we are working with them, but we have updated it to be the most recent list to match what's on the website.
Mhm.
So that just happened, I think, last week. So you should be able to see that natively in the app.
Yeah, I think I saw it. I just, it doesn't do the same thing, right? It doesn't, spiritually, what we're trying to do with this new thing.
Correct.
And I don't know if there's an easy way to do it. Obviously, there isn't, but there's some way to kind of like merge the programs where MyLibro would also be an avenue for them to do something. That'd be great. That's my only comment.
Yeah, and we are working with them on, in that example, just to get informational component at the top.
Right.
We were working on that, and so they are actively trying to see what they can do for us on that component. And so even that is it's not a struggle, but it's an ask that we have to ask for them and then wait for them to develop something out so that they can put something there. And then beyond that, obviously, aside from the physical paper, like where you can check off that you've been there.
Right.
We're attempting to do that too, but that's a much bigger ask than
Right.
we've already done. But yes, we thought about that and would love to do that as well.
So we need a motion to approve.
If there's no other, any other comments or questions? Yes, motion to approve the 2023 operational plan.
I move to approve the, oh,
A
sorry,
motion, second
second.
by Terry. So we will do a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Hi.
Trustee Lynn. Trustee Wilkerson.
Hi.
I'm like, and it's an I vote for me. Thank you to all the work that went into that.
Thanks, thank you.
And then the reason why we have a 300-page agenda. Mr. IT Director. The review and approval of the RFP for the district E-rate, and this is an action item.
All right, thank you, board and members of the public, IT director or IT manager and technical services manager, David. I feel obligated now to apologize for doubling the length of the package, so I do apologize for that. I'll quickly go through this agenda item and just kind of give some details that I might not have necessarily included in there that might be helpful, but we apply through Ed Technology Funds is a vendor that we work with, their consulting firm that deals specifically with E-rate and also with emergency connectivity funding. And they help us secure funds for the library at discounted rates or potentially sometimes free or reimbursed. So in this case, we're talking about E-rate, and through 2025, we secured about $125,000 total through this program. And it's based on square footage, and then there's different categories there within. The focus of tonight is category 2, which is pretty much the cabling from the equipment, the network equipment, to the end devices themselves. Anything beyond that is not covered in the scope of that. And then anything from the AT&T side where they bring in the network to your site, that'd be category 1. So that's also not included in what we're talking about here. But anyhow, essentially this RFP is for the cabling services. So it'll include the cabling itself and then the vendor to come out and run the cable through the existing conduit that'll be for the Bob Lucas branch through the renovation. And what we'll do is by getting this vendor, we'll be able to reduce down the total cost of this component of the renovation to 20 cents on the dollar. And that's just through this E-rate program that we have funding for. So yeah, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer it, but my recommendation and the library's recommendation is to approve the RFP so that we can move it forward. I'll also mention that we have to file by a certain point, so it does kind of move forward pretty quickly. So as long as, you know, the board does approve it, the next board meeting, we would be bringing back to you a decision, and then that all has to happen in March so that we can have it in place for the next fiscal year, which aligns with our fiscal years. That way we can build it into the Bob renovation.
So I guess my main thing is, so this has already been built by Ed Technology Funds and consulted with them to make sure the RFP is complete and hits all the points, right?
Yes, that's correct. So they file RFPs through USAC, and then also technically it's through FCC as well. So this is their official RFP that they'll post on our behalf. Normally we write our own RFPs. We have a template that's approved by our legal team. But in this case, since they work independently, they have to follow a lot of federal guidelines. So this is their form and template, and they follow strict guidelines to bring what we have for you today.
And then basically, sorry, I totally missed it. The value of this, or the expected, if you have a WAG, for how much this is gonna be?
I don't. I'm not sure the exact costs and like what we would expect, but I just know in general, you know, we had already allocated funding for it through the building renovation. So essentially what we're expecting is whatever the cost would have been, we're just reducing the cost down to 20% of the total cost. And then I'll also mention a lot of the additional documents that are included in the appendix. You may have already seen And that's most of the length of it, but it required us to provide the full renovation design documents and also some specs for the network cabling. And then also the schematics for that as well, in order to provide like a full-fledged idea of what the scope of the project is to any potential bidders. So that's why it is so long, unfortunately.
And then, so a silly point of clarification, then when the original funding was built, right, we didn't expect a 5-to-1 ratio of savings. So potentially with this, then the money gets reallocated somewhere else.
Yeah,
Yes,
It would probably go into the project contingency fund,
Right.
so we have contingency funds for both individual building projects and
Right.
then like an overall contingency fund.
It was good.
This is great, and would we go through the same process for me?
yes, and now being aware of the total process and the timelines, we'll be much more prepared and not have such a strict timeline in the future for sure.
Well, I was thinking about the amount of things that you have to prepare, like.
Yes.
whew. Yeah, motion to approve the RFP, I think it's great.
Any further questions before I ask for a second? Do I have a second?
Second, yes.
Seconded by Terry. Okay. Do a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews,
Aye.
trustee Clark,
Hi.
trustee Lynn,
Aye.
trustee Wilkerson,
Hi.
and that's my vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, it's a big one.
Yeah, awesome. We love our free money. And then the next on our list, also an action item, is the IT and facilities assessment proposal.
all right. Good evening again. So, where to start with this one? Back in the fall, I was contacted by Carlos Cafigo, who at the time was the acting deputy director that oversees IT and facilities for Pasadena Public Libraries. He was conducting a 5-series webinar on building basics for libraries. And generally what that 5-part series was meant to do was work with new library managers to understand, like, if you're running or like you're in charge of a library facility, what you should know about the facility itself, just like a crash course for them. So when I saw what it was about, I had mentioned it to Jonathan. Jonathan attended the series, most of which I'm sure he already knew. And Carlos came out and walked the facilities with Jonathan. Him and I then met, and I knew Carlos because when I worked in Glendale as the assistant director, I was over IT for the system. David worked for me there, and we shared a catalog with Pasadena at the time. They no longer do, but we worked pretty closely with them, met with them bi-monthly, quarterly. So have worked pretty closely with him and seen the quality of his work. And he not only oversaw IT, but also facilities. And as I'm sure you're all aware, Pasadena has 10 aging libraries that need a lot of infrastructure and work. Carlos recently retired, much to their chagrin, I'm sure. And when he came into Pasadena, it was to retrofit and renovate the Altadena Central Library. He also coordinated the lease for the renovation, relocation, and opening of the PUSD location at Jefferson Elementary School. So we have a lot of similar work that's going on, is the way I put it. After he visited, he recommended some consultant services that would bring the experience and expertise necessary to educate our building and IT staff on latest industry standards, principles, concepts, and terminology as they specifically pertain to library services. The last time we did a facilities assessment, I think Jonathan said was in 2018. So it's been about 5 years since we've done a facilities assessment. I don't know that we've had an IT assessment done that I know of prior to this. So in talking with Carlos, and he's started a consulting business, he recommended that come in and do a full assessment of both and work closely with Jonathan and David to make sure that they have the tools and resources, training, and expertise, especially as we're gonna have these two new libraries to oversee in the next 5 to 6 years. It could, and with the fiscal impact, as you can see in my report, the hourly rate is $225. The not to exceed amount would be $22,500 paid out of the consultant's other line. Being that it is over the $10,000 threshold, this is oftentimes something that we would bring as a request for proposals. But I do believe that it's almost like a sole source, because I don't know of another consultant that could do both the IT and the facilities assessment at once. So it is my recommendation that you authorize me to work with them to do these assessments for us. But I'm open to questions and your thoughts around how to proceed.
So given the current, what we're doing right now, right, with the building redesign and everything else, how does this feather in with all the other activities? Given we're already doing a lot of it, I guess.
Question.
Yeah, I think, the way I see it is main library is not gonna close for at least another year and a half. And I think there were some infrastructure and other things that when he toured the library felt needed to be addressed before we closed the library. I do think it's also, as I mentioned, educating them on industry standard principles, connecting them to training that would be beneficial to make sure that they have the tools and resources they need to be able to oversee the work for not just these buildings as we're moving into renovation, but the libraries once we reopen them.
So is the idea that these 100 hours would be mostly training capacity building for staff, or would there be any part of that scope that involves looking at what we're proposing for both of our buildings? You know what I mean? And taking that into account, like, hey, does this make sense? Are we?
I haven't even thought of it, but I don't think it would be a bad idea.
I
Like,
think it would make a ton of sense.
yeah,
right?
loop him into like facilities committee conversations when appropriate.
Yeah, and I guess my other question is, so it's 100 hours, so not to exceed 100 hours basically. But that wouldn't all be before the end of this fiscal year, right?
Not necessarily.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
That's the total amount of the contract, but that may well be spread over this budget as well as next year's budget.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So legally, can we actually do that without RFP? Anybody know?
Yes. Yes, we can, we absolutely can. The only issue would be is if we think that there's a reasonable claim to be made that like, it would not be, that we're circumventing some sort of competitive process. Right, so if we think that there are other people or other agencies that, you know, other firms, whatever, that might be able to provide these same services at, say, a savings to taxpayers or at a higher professional standard, then we would be obligated to do an RFP. The $10,000 one is a board policy issue, not a legal issue. That's just something we've put in place as a, you know, self-governing mechanism. I mean, I believe you, Nikki, when you say, I don't think there's anybody else who could, especially not with the familiarity with like kind of the Altadena, Pasadena specific
Right.
issues with our communities. We kind of ran into this issue with demographers, right? Where there's just like only so many people that do it. So yeah, I think it's totally legitimate. I guess my only concern is I feel like the scope of the work is a little bit undefined. So maybe that.
Is
I was
it,
gonna say that too, like that might be for me, the reason why a proposal would be helpful is to have it be a little bit more defined. I mean,
So like the scope of services on pages 296 and 297, be more detailed.
yeah, I don't really understand it, so.
well, I mean, the issue with the scope of services in 96 and 97 is, it's huge.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, what Camilla is talking about is maybe a little bit of focusing, whether it's, you know, which part of bullets 1 to 4, right? Are we actually doing within this proposal, I suppose.
Well, because also in this kind of outline, it says that the consultation services are provided for a period of 120 days.
Oh,
And that seems unrealistic to me,
yeah,
especially without huge of a scope.
yeah. I didn't
So-
catch that.
Yeah,
No, typically our professional service agreements range from 1 to 3 years,
yeah, exactly.
so.
I think this is great. I think we should do it. I think it's a good idea. I think this guy is qualified. I just feel like we need a little bit more detailed proposal and a PSA,
What's a PSA?
a professional services agreement.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if I'll have it back in February or not, because I won't be at that meeting.
Right,
But I'll work on it with him.
okay.
Okay.
I do think it's a really good idea though, and I'm particularly interested in the fact that he had experience with the Jefferson
Yes. Yeah.
repurposing. If we're gonna do this at Franklin, I think that's super helpful. Because all those POC buildings are similar.
So we'll just flag that potentially as an unfinished
Yeah.
business item. Okay. Okay. Any further comments or questions on that? I would just ditto, I think overall, I think it's a great idea. Just make sure we
So I think then I'll move to postpone this item until we have, additional.
Would it be beneficial to ask him to attend, so you could specifically ask him questions too?
I mean, sure, I think if we can get the information in writing, great.
Yep.
If he wants to come and do it in person, that's fine too.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean, it's clear he knows what he's talking about. It's just, I think we need a little bit more detail.
okay.
So second your motion.
Any comments? Okay. Call for a roll call vote. Trustee Andrews,
Hi,
trustee Clark,
Hi.
trustee Lim,
Aye.
trustee Wilkerson,
Hi.
and that's an aye vote for me. Thank you, team. Next, on our action items, review and approval of the late opening the library on January 27th for staff training.
Back to me. So this does feel a little last minute, I'm sure, but we, have been working with Jennifer Coyle to come up with, these training topics, basically based on like a couple of patron incidents that happened, I think in November, that prompted us to have conversations with staff about uniform policy enforcement, as well as how to deal with difficult situations. We identified January 27th as the best day that would work for Jennifer. She's in California anyway, so we share travel costs with other organizations that she'll be meeting with this week. Do we not, so we're asking to open at 12 o'clock at both libraries on Friday so that all staff can attend and be part of, the first training will be with all staff from 9 to 11. And then from 11 to 1, we're gonna work more in depth with the person in charge, so the librarian level and managers, about like their responsibility in dealing with difficult situations. In the event that we don't close or that we don't open at 12, a couple of us managers will work the desks and make sure we can open at 10. But it is my recommendation that we open at 12 o'clock on Friday at both libraries, so as many people as possible can be involved in this training. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Nope.
And I get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Second and seconded. So roll call vote, trustee Andrews,
hi.
trustee Clark,
Hi.
trustee Lim,
Aye.
trustee Wilkerson,
Hi.
and that is an aye vote for me.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone. I really like this next one. This is kind of exciting. So
Yeah.
review and approval of closure on April 27th for ALD Employee Habitat for Humanity bill. This is super awesome.
Yeah,
Can
I'm
we
really
come?
excited.
That was my question too.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Can we come?
our trustees.
Are we allowed to come?
I don't know why not. Honestly, yeah, we love them. I even, a couple of, I think it was Bridget and someone else, I think even the support groups sounded interested as well. So yeah, we'll definitely explore that. Problem is you can only have so many people.
Okay,
you
fair
know,
enough.
So we'll talk to Habitat, but
Yeah,
This-
definitely prioritize stuff.
yeah, this was prompted, as I shared with the board back in October, I went to Mexico with Rotary for a day and we like built a house, I mean, a structure, I would say. And then was at a Rotary Club meeting where Habitat for Humanity spoke. And shortly thereafter, and I thought, wouldn't this, and the staff have, brought up to the staff recognition team wanting to do a community service project together. And being that this is the first house being built in Altadena by Habitat, it just seemed to make a lot of sense.
So this is the one that's under construction, not a second one, the one. I think
It hasn't started construction.
Oh, it hasn't even
They-
started
they,
yet. Oh,
They
okay.
broke ground. I was at that
Oh, okay, cool.
back in like October or something. It was a while ago. But yeah, they're kicking off the second weekend of March with some, I don't remember what it's a women's focused event that weekend. And then after that, like organizations can sponsor days, and I think it's into like June. So we reached out and we chose Thursday because it's a day that we're only open 10 to 6. We didn't want to do it on a Monday or Tuesday when we're open more hours. And we did want all of the staff to be able to do this. So as I spelled out in my report, the cost of sponsorship is $2,500. We would have staff as individuals help fundraise that amount, to be able to pay for the sponsorship. And then if there's staff that choose not to participate on the day of the event, they could do so, but if normally scheduled to work, could take leave and choose not to. I don't want to force anybody to don't want to. But it seems to me like everybody's really excited about the idea. Let's see, what else? What else? She wrote this report, so.
Oh, we go, because Yvonne, our accountant got in connection with, and she was just talking about like, you go there, spend the whole day there, you guys can bring your own lunch and.
Yeah.
It's pretty much spelled out here. It's gonna be really fun. It's like a great group effort for everybody to connect to each other more and then also just be actually physically building something, which is really cool. So.
So happy to answer any other questions, but yeah, we're asking if there's unequal.
Approved.
Yeah, just let us know when you get an answer about trustees, and I'd love to.
I think
Or
that's
if
what it
there's
would come
an
down to.
opportunity to sponsor a second day for like Altadena library support. You know what I mean? Cause like Friends Foundation, us, like.
That's a good idea.
I
Yeah,
forget, was there a flyer up on the community board? I don't remember seeing it. Or just,
for Habitat, and I'm not sure if somebody.
Mhm.
But there
Should
might
put
be,
one.
there might be one there.
I haven't seen it, so I think you should put one in.
Yeah,
Yeah, that one.
For
I thought about an idea, but
No, they have the flyer. I've seen it at grocery outlet and a couple other places, but I don't remember seeing it here.
Oh, I see.
So, but, and when you want to do fundraising too, you should definitely
I
do
might
it.
have a flyer now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, not a bad idea to look at a second day.
Yeah.
And I do know they get pretty full.
I feel like we could probably fill it up.
Yeah, 25.
And the cost
No, I
is-
mean, the days get like taken.
Oh.
No, that's, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
so, when we reached back out to her, because we told her we had to get approval. to
Yeah.
Officially book the date, we could ask
That's great.
what the
That was
calendar
very
is,
cool.
I can communicate that with you guys.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, third, fourth.
All right. Trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Lim.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And that is an aye for me. Super cool. Thank you for that. And then everybody's favorite. Review and approval of the resolution to extend the provisions authorizing remote teleconference meetings.
So look at this. We're all here.
I don't think we need to talk about it, so motion to approve,
So much, so much.
second,
Second.
and a roll call vote, trustee Andrews.
Aye.
Trustee Clark.
Aye.
Trustee Lim.
Aye.
Trustee Wilkerson.
Aye.
And that is an aye vote for me as well. On governance, virtual community meetings. That,
Is that basically,
Is that
do we
this?
need to continue this?
I didn't know, like, what I'll probably need to find out is if we can continue out of resolution. Because there was some talk that it's gonna end in February or this year. So I'll look into that. I do think it doesn't hurt to keep the resolution in place,
It's
especially
good to have it.
for
Yeah.
meetings.
That's right.
You know.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'll do some more research. I think this is working out. So, and that way too, it's like one of you can't attend in person for whatever reason,
Yeah.
we still have that in place as well.
And you can call in from the WhatsApp line.
yeah,
No problem.
It's a good.
I'm sure that won't raise any red flags.
There's no reason it doesn't happen at all.
So then, on announcements and planning, we have correspondence on the LAFCO alternate public member. I don't know, is that just purely informational in case one of us wants to apply for that?
It's really just a notice that they sent, so is there anybody who's interested, can do it? So we just made it part of correspondence, because they did send this to us, to share with the board.
Yeah, I know in the past, our government liaison has helped us on that voting, so. Any proposed future agenda items from any of the trustees?
Nope.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned at 7:31 PM. Thank you, everybody.
That's that, right?
Good job, Jason. Thank you.